One of our tradition, you need to start to share your who you are, where you're logged in from, and what you're looking forward to get from this session. So please feel free to share in the chat. And today we will have three speakers, Yanto, Satyajit, and Subarna, sharing their research for us. So first, let's welcome Yanto to introduce himself and also the his topic for today.
Shall I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst 2030. So this is, in my understanding, this is one of the first initiatives that tries to bring together researchers and speakers who have done something on social entrepreneurship. And I'm Yanto Chandra from City University of Hong Kong. I'm originally from Indonesia, but I've been developing my career as an academic, as a professor, in multiple countries in Western Europe and in Hong Kong over the past over 10 years. So I think I will kind of like use this as an experimental stage to propose some of the new ideas and the kind of work that I've been working on. As you look at the title, it's called Public Interest Enterprise, in which I was trying to look at whether we can bring in government into the discourse in social entrepreneurship theory and practice. And this is actually based on a long sort of understanding that when we talk about social entrepreneurship and social enterprise, the government is always not there, at least in the major publications, right? So we always look at social enterprise as a standalone activity that is not sort of connected to the government. In fact, they're trying to stay away from the government because they want to have their own freedom to do a lot of things. But if you look at social enterprises and social entrepreneurs as problem solvers, basically they themselves are facing a lot of problems, and we all know that, right? And I'm not talking about problems at a very practical level, but at least at the discourse level, in the research level of how we see these things. One of these problems is an exaggeration of what agency means for social entrepreneurship. We tend to think of social enterprise as very powerful, omnipotent in its ability to solve a lot of societal problems. We have these different kind of fellowships: Ashoka, Skoll, Swap, Echoing Green, and that is actually one problem. And also social entrepreneurship, although it has been casted as a problem-solving mechanism, it is also a source of problems. And some of the scholars have been talking about this in some major journals. The second point is systemic change has been discussed as the holy grail of what social enterprises and social entrepreneurs want to achieve. But the question is, we often neglect the role of government in that space. We do know government is very powerful, has a lot of resources, have a lot of influence to make things. So what governments do or don't do can influence a lot of things in tackling societal challenges and grand challenges. And we also know that a lot of social enterprises, although it has been around for what, 30 years, 40 years, at least in the in the literature, but it has much longer history. But most of the social enterprises are small and weak. We haven't seen social enterprises that are unicorns or publicly listed in the stock market. So this leads to the other issues about the question of what is meant by social. There's a lot of research, and the focus on social entrepreneurship is on work integration social enterprise, or WISE, right? So these are the kind of social enterprises that try to create jobs for maybe disabled people, elderly, new migrants, disadvantaged groups of people. But the question is, what exactly that we want to benefit from who do we want to benefit to when we talk about social enterprise? Are we just going to benefit a niche groups of people, which is what a lot of WISE are doing? Or do we want to see social enterprises to benefit the public, or doing something in the interest of the public to create benefits for the public? And the last but not least, and I'll go through this in other episodes of my talk, is there is a strong domination of Western theories and perspectives in terms of how to fix societal problems. And I do know, because this is great opportunity, because all of the speakers today are from the global South. For example, one of the way that social entrepreneurs work is to use market mechanisms to solve social problems. But in our own research, for example, we look at the Philippines, some of these market mechanisms is actually causing a lot of fracture in the social fabric in some of the places that social enterprise were operating. It ignores local culture and local customs. Next. So yeah, I mean, these are basically the main issues that I've been talking about. So how do we solve this question about agency and its relationship with the government? What can the government do? What role does the government can play with regard to social enterprises, right? And when we talk about the government, there's a whole stream of literature in public administration and public management that is often not integrated with social entrepreneurship. So, these things are just kind of like very much separated. So social entrepreneurship or social enterprises can benefit from understanding what its relationship with government or policymakers are, and knowing how they can position themselves in relation to the government or policymakers. So this is the kind of major point that I want to raise today. Next. So I'm going to look at 3 cases that have been very successful in terms of creating public interest. They started as a social enterprise, and they've been changing a lot in various aspects of the government or policymakers. Let's go to the first case. So this has been partly published, and some of them are in the process of being published. So please bear with me as the data, the information can be further enhanced. The first is a social enterprise that works in the housing sector in Hong Kong. So they started many years ago, starting with just a couple of empty apartments in which the owner are willing to rent it to the social enterprise, and the social enterprise will work together with single parents and put 2 or more single parents to live together in these very nice apartments, right? And you all know that Hong Kong has been experiencing housing shortage. So what they do is, because of the model that they're using, very innovative and working really well, they were mentioned in a policy budget some years ago. And then they were mentioned again in a policy address in 2017. And later they inspired the Hong Kong government to form a new policy called the Transitional Housing Policy. Next. So if you can see what happens to Light B, they started with a small prototype of a social enterprise. And they gained policy attention, which means that they gained the government's attention that this could be a new solution to the housing problems in Hong Kong. And the green one at the bottom there is a scaled-up version of the original prototype. And later, the government was experimenting with this new type of solution that Lightby was proposing. And this is one of the first housing that they're providing called the T-home. And later, this model is adopted by the Hong Kong government, and now in various stages, from in progress, in planning, and being completed, there's going to be 21,000 units of flats with over 11 billion Hong Kong dollars in the project. So it becomes a policy mix of the government to provide housing solution. Next. Diamond Cap. This is also another social enterprise that I've been working with for a long time in terms of doing research together with them and inviting them to various talks. So this Diamond Cap, they're creating a new type of taxi that can serve people on the wheelchair. So previous to their emergence in the Hong Kong market, you don't really hear much about this type of taxi in Hong Kong. There are illegal vans and things like that, and some buses provided by NGOs, but not in this format that is providing a high quality service and very specially designed taxi. So how they are actually benefiting the public creating a new interest for the public is they have been, because of their model, they have initiated some change in how the government see what it can do in terms of providing taxi services. With, for example, the government is asking at least 10% or 30 wheelchair accessible taxi for any new taxi company to operate in Hong Kong. And also they can set their own price, etc. So next, yeah. So from SE prototype with this type of taxi, they gain policy attention, not just by investors, impact investors, and also there's the guy there very important in the Legislative Council in the photo. And also they also influence SMRT, which is the subway in Singapore, to build a collaboration, right? And then the social enterprise is causing some policy adjustment in the Hong Kong's government in terms of providing a new regulations in terms of how much the percentage of the wheelchair accessible taxis needs to be there. And also it has gained endorsement by some, some senior government officials, and their quality service workflow has been incorporated in the government policy. So this is another case in Hong Kong. Next. Yeah, so this is the last case that I also have been working with for over 10 years. The Pur Bistik, which means a beef steak kitchen. So what this SE is doing is trying to work together with the former, religious extremists / terrorists, depending on how you look at it. So they're trying to reintegrate these people in the community. But there's a lot of limitations in what the government can do in dealing with this type of militants or combatants. The innovation of the model, which is recruiting these people and training them to be chef, to be operator and manager of the restaurant, selling this type of beef steaks, they gain this recognition. And for example, the Indonesian anti-terrorism unit and special force has been asking their help, this social enterprise help, to work with them in de-radicalization work, including the United Nations Drugs and Crime. And they're providing a very innovative ways to deal with extremism with emphasis on soft approaches, which is inspired by the model of the social enterprise. Next. Yes. So if we look at it, it started with the social enterprise that providing this type of model in the restaurant, Food for Peace as a model, to gaining policy attention, in which the founder is trying to promote a lot of what they do and gain policy attention, to advocacy about what they do, to change how the government think about what is meant by de-radicalization, how we can bring in new or non-traditional approaches and partners, and focus on integration rather than using militaristic approach or law to deal with terrorists and militants, to becoming a policy mix in the Indonesian anti-terrorism and special force unit, including they have a smart farm to work together with the former terrorists. Next. So what we can see here, from policy, as a prototype to gaining policy attention, to policy experimentation and policy mix, Light B has reached to the end there, becoming a policy mix of the government, including the Pur Bistik. And the diamond cap is slightly going to that side, but maybe they're slightly before that, they're still at a, changing the government. The government is still experimenting with these new ways of dealing with the taxi, but a lot of social enterprises just stop there, being a prototype, not growing really big in scale or influence. And some social enterprises have created policy attention, for example, with what they do in terms of dealing with disabled issues or gender issues or whatever. Next. And tackling the social versus the public question, this is where I think some of the literature from public administration could play a role, because in the social entrepreneurship literature, which is mainly from the business literature, that talk about social entrepreneurship as a hybrid organization. The root of this is in the business discipline, in the business ideology. There's a lot of debate about what is social. Is it ethical? Is it moral? Is it societal? But a lot of the term that people use when we talk about social entrepreneurship or social enterprise, social means beneficiary. There's a certain groups of people, a niche group of people who benefit from the social enterprise activity. I'm here to propose a new proposal. Why don't we look at the public instead of the social? We're looking at organizations that create public interest, public benefits, and perhaps we can also talk about public value creation instead of just about social value creation. And this is where we can bring in a lot of literature from the strategic management of public organizations, from public administration theories called public value, into the discourse and theory about social entrepreneurship. Next. So this is near the end of my talk, in which I'm trying to say that there's a lot of organizations that act in the public interest, many social enterprises, for-profit ventures, NGOs, civil society. Some gain policy attention, some inspire the governments about this new model that social enterprises provide. And some of them have been included in policy planning, like the taxi that I mentioned. And also some of them has been able to change how the government's policy and become a policy mix, a part of policy mix and creating the public benefits. So in the context of this public value theory, you start from activities that benefit with the public interest in mind, to experimenting with public value, to co-opting public value, which means that the public value is being adopted by the public sector, but the government, for example, and this leading to some outcomes. And you can see that actually, as you go to the further to the right, fewer and fewer of these social enterprises can achieve this, because you need to be really offering something really new or something really effective that would convince the government that these solutions that social enterprises provide could actually solve a lot of these issues, unemployment or disability or poverty or health or climate change. And you can see smaller and smaller number will get there, but many of them will work in the interest. So I'm proposing a new concept that I call public interest enterprise instead of a social enterprise. And this can encompass a broader form of organization, including B Corp, for example. There's a lot of talk about benefit B Corporation, a certification for-profit companies that are creating a lot of benefits, for example. This, if they only look at it as a B Corp, it's too narrow, it's too small, and it doesn't create a lot of inspiration for people to study this, to advocate. But B Corp could be a part of this. A lot of NGOs, a lot of for-profit companies that are doing something in the interest of the public, as simple as a football club. If you have a very famous footballer in a World Cup or major sports tournament, shows how you can be environmentally friendly or deals with some issues that will change a lot of this, create public benefits. So I've been talking about some of the issues with social entrepreneurship, and then I'm asking, can social enterprise dance with the government? In our work as scholars, as academics, we are often asked, what is your policy impact? What is the impact of your work for the policymakers? We could also ask the same question to social enterprise. What is your impact for the policy for the government? So in this talk, I'm proposing a shift from the discourse about social to public, which is public value creation. And I'm proposing a concept of public benefit enterprise or public interest enterprise, whichever we like it. But the idea is this enterprise create benefits, value to the public in certain ways, and gain trust, gain legitimacy from the public about what they do. They can be more efficient. They can be providing a better service to the public. That's all from me. Happy to take some questions, and I'll stop it here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor Yanto. I think it's very nice to see that bringing the government to social entrepreneurship and the case studies, especially the major insights. Instead of social value creation, we should move to the public value creation. I'm sure this particular case studies are really helpful, and we can replicate this work in many areas. There's a lot of requirements there. If there are any questions, any from our participants, you can see that questions. Any questions from chat box?
Do we take the questions after all three speakers speak, or do you want?
Yeah, we will take questions after the speakers speak. All of the speakers, so we can move on to the second one now. Yanto, do you want to introduce Subarna?
Yes, I'll just go ahead. Professor Subarna, he is a FRSCA in the head and associate professor at University of Nottingham, Malaysia. And Subarna is actively involved in sustainability education advocacy. She is presently the co-chair of National Education for Sustainable Development Association of Selangor. She also sits on National Committee of WWF Malaysia Eco Schools Program and is presently the Deputy Chair of Eco Campus Program. She also she's a United Nations University Pro Spare Net Leadership, Building Transformational Leadership towards the Sustainable Development Goals Fellow. And we are very happy to have you with us. And another important thing, she also a Ecumen Fellow, the World's School for Social Change, and she also leads the Climate Crisis Interest-Based Group in Catalyst 2030. So welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rao. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And to Muslim colleagues listening in today, I would like to wish all of you Eid Mubarak. It is a public holiday here in Malaysia today and tomorrow. But I think it's a good 1 hour spent today for me to be able to learn from all of you. So amazing work by Dr. Yanto just now. I'm coming in from a little bit of a different lens. So I'm an academic. I'm attached to a university in Malaysia. It's called the University of Nottingham. It's a UK-based university with campuses in UK, Malaysia, as well as China. And I joined this institution in 2022 as the head of School of Education. So as you can see, the title of my session today is Teachers Paving the Way for Impact Work. And I am particularly passionate about impact work. And for my students from the School of Education who are going to become future teachers, it is important for them to understand why impact work is important. So I come in from not a social entrepreneurship lens, but from a social intrapreneurship lens. Yeah. So I think we can skip all of this because Dr. Rao has already done the introductions. Yes, so thank you. So I would like to just provide some context to what's happening in Malaysia with regards to entrepreneurship and creating value through impact. Yeah. So in Malaysia, we have two very important documents, which is called the Malaysian Education Blueprint. And this is ending next year. In fact, this is for preschool to post-secondary. And we also have the higher education blueprint, the one on the right-hand side with 10 key shifts. And one of the important shifts in this education blueprint is actually the development of holistic, entrepreneurial, and balanced graduates. So with this in mind, when I joined the School of Education in 2022, I had this vision of wanting my students who are going to become future teachers to also have to also understand the importance of entrepreneurship and how they can figure this in their work as teachers. Yeah. Rikun, thank you. So what I'm showing here is actually the skill set evolution for jobs of the future. Naturally, as those of us teaching in higher education, I think this is something very important we need to understand because we are going to be producing graduates for the future, and we need to understand what are the kinds of competences they would need to be able to survive in an increasingly complex workforce of the future. Climate change is going to be affecting a lot of jobs in the future. Poverty is going to be affecting a lot of jobs in the future as well. So understanding these lenses and getting our students to appreciate the need to develop these competences are very, very important. So I'm not going to go through the skill sets. You can have a look at it, but you can see very clearly from 2015 till 2025 what are the ranges of skill sets that are needed. And one skill set that's really very important is the ability for students or future graduates to be able to think analytically, to be able to solve complex problems, and also to be able to ideate, have resilience, and leadership and social influence. Yeah. If you can go to the next slide, please. All right. So schools of the future, and why I show this in particular is because of the background that I mentioned just now, the context. I work in a school of education. I work with students who are going to become future teachers. And a lot of research has already gone into establishing the fact that schools of the future have to be very, very different. It cannot be as how it is now. Yeah. So what are schools of the future going to be like? This is the question, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. This is a report from UNESCO taken from the year 2021 and how teachers of the future are going to be or should be like, right? And what are the implications for teacher education programs? So this quote is very, very striking for me, and I thought I should share this with you. Teachers stand at the forefront of localized change, introducing students to the knowledge, skills, and values and abilities to act sustainably, live together peacefully, and build a more just society. And it is with this in mind that we develop our impact work around at the School of Education at my institution. Next, please, Rikun. All right. So there needs to be a paradigm shift, I think, and this is what we've been trying to do at the University of Nottingham. We try to change the way we view teacher education. So teacher education is not just about the four walls of a classroom, but it is beyond that. It's taking the classroom outside or going outside to experience learning. Yeah. So the visions that we have in my school is to move our teachers, my future teachers, from not just thinking about being a teacher, but also thinking about becoming teacher entrepreneurs or teacher entrepreneurs, right? Okay, Rikun, if you can go to the next slide. All right. I will not spend a lot of time on this. You may have a look at this through links that are posted later, but this is our University of Nottingham strategy. Next slide. Yeah, so if you can see, this is the vision of the university, and one of the missions that we have are also to become stewards of pioneering and entrepreneurial tradition of creativity and innovation. So if you go to the next slide, right, and we embed this through the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as the notion of partnerships, right? Right. Yeah, so the SDGs, I think we're all familiar with the SDGs. So a lot of the impact work that goes on in the School of Education is tagged to Sustainable Development Goals, and it's also in line with what the future of the education ecosystem or education profession in Malaysia needs to be. Okay. I see I only have 3 minutes left. I will try and speed up very fast. Okay. So this is how we are approaching social entrepreneurship at the School of Education. So as I mentioned earlier, we are developing teachers, but we at the same time also want them to think beyond becoming teachers, but also to become social entrepreneurs. And why social entrepreneurs is because we want them to be able to develop competences to be able to work for a social cause, create impact from that work that they do. All right. And these are very much driven by the school and institutional aims, as well as the students' personal aims and goals. And this is driven through the SDGs, the Education 2030 framework, as well as SDG for quality education. Okay. Next, please, Rikun. All right. And these are the enablers that we focus on as we develop social entrepreneurs at the school. So it is student-led. It's very, very bottom-up. We have staff mentors. So I, for one, am an example of a staff mentor. It's service learning focused. It's out of the formal curriculum. So we don't have modules related to social entrepreneurship within the program, but these are activities that are done outside of the formal curriculum, right? It operates on institutional funding as well as crowdfunding. So this is a very, very simple model on how we are nurturing social entrepreneurship in the School of Education. And the pictures that you see at the bottom are from some of the projects that we have undertaken since 2022. We are still at pilot phase, but I think this is a good starting point for us to start developing these kinds of social impact mindsets within our student and student leaders. Yeah. If we can go to the next, I don't know whether we have time to show this video. If I can just steal maybe 5 minutes, maybe not the first project, but the second project. Rikun, if you could share the video from the second project. So this is an example of a social entrepreneurship project that the students ran in June last year. This was run in collaboration with an indigenous village very close to the university, and also in collaboration with the local indigenous office. Yeah. So I think this video should be able to summarize, the amount of work that has gone into developing this project. So Rikun, if you don't mind playing the video.
I think we can share the links while we share all of the slides. So do you mind if we put the link there so people can watch it later?
Okay, no problem. So I'm going on minus 18 seconds now. So should I wrap up very quickly then?
Yeah, I think you can go on, wrap it
Okay.
up. Thank you.
Okay, so these are just some of the reflections from students who took part in this SI project. So as I mentioned earlier, it is bottom up. It is led by students. It's not within the formal curriculum. So students are volunteers basically on these projects, and these are some of the reflections that they had, and they shared these reflections with me. I've not collected any form of other empirical data as yet because we are still in piloting phase. We are still understanding what the challenges are, what could be the potential of moving this into a more formalized way within the curriculum. So these are some of the things that I'm thinking about at the moment. And if anybody here on this call is also doing something similar, it'd be great if we could, get together and maybe share some notes and see how we can work together. All right. So I think with that, I will end my session and hand the floor back over to Dr. Rao.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Subarna. I think it's really excellent. See the kind of teaching experiences that you have it and the kind of projects that you have carried out. I'm sure definitely this is your experience, the kind of project that you have done it. We'll share with the participants, and there's a lot to learn because we'll talk about we are looking for entrepreneurs who students should take entrepreneurship as the career option, but how we are going to influence from school level at education institutions because education curriculum plays an important role. I think definitely we should have to learn, and definitely we'll get back to you with that. And thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. Now, thank you. Now we have with us Professor Satyajit Majumdar, Dean at School of Social Science, School of Management and Lab Studies at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. He's also Professor in charge and Director of Tata Incubi Foundation at Tata TIS Mumbai. He's also a member of Governing Board of National Innovation Foundation and also member of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. His primary research area is entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship, specifically focusing on growth strategy, business models, and CSR. Professor Satyajit Majumdar, please, on behalf of Academic Hub, please welcome you all. We are all welcoming, sir.
Okay, thank you, Nagesh. I'm sharing my screen from my
Yes.
laptop here.
Please, please.
Yeah. So I come from kind of multiple roles. So far as social entrepreneurship is concerned, I teach at the master's program in social entrepreneurship at Tata Institute. I also research myself. I guide PhD scholars, and my major time these days goes in mentoring social impact startups. So I'll kind of take a slightly historical view. What happened so far as the discipline of social entrepreneurship in research is concerned. And in the participant list, I saw Professor Madhukar Shukla also as an audience in this forum. I think Professor Shukla is one of the, I would say, forerunners in bringing the narrative of social entrepreneurship in India. So I feel fortunate and honored to see him in this session. So I'll start with how the discipline of social entrepreneurship built up in academic research or scholarly research. So I think we started with a huge amount of confusion, right? What is the difference between business and social entrepreneur? The definition debate, for profit, not non-for-profit, etc., etc. how they mobilize fund, and how do we measure their impact, and do we really have a sort of need for social entrepreneurs, because every business creates a job, every business creates impact. And of course, domain related definition, technology people, the public policy people, the scholars, they have different narratives to talk about. But if I look at any new discipline will have this confusion, scholarly confusion. So the common interest area which comes about is the approach, how entrepreneur behaves, how he or she takes message, what is the motivation, what are the resource mobilization capability, etc. And of course, they work for societal impact. They create on a social mission for creating social impact. They work on social problem solving, etc. So that's another pocket of knowledge which we see in academic research. The third is the business model, which is always under debate. How they generate revenue? Do they depend fully on grant? Do they have revenue model? Do they become profit centric when they migrate from social to business entrepreneurship? And of course, all the scholarly people like us are debating, is there any original theory in social entrepreneurship, which we still are grappling with this idea question, whether we have a fresh theory on social entrepreneurship or not. But we also understand this debate. We understand the difficulty among the scholars, because we know that social entrepreneurship is a discipline which is seen differently in different part of the globe. If you look at the South America, it explains social entrepreneurship differently versus Russia, versus UK and Europe. So certainly there would be a definitional debate. So my first submission is a definitional debate is needed because it's a multidisciplinary area, right? Every discipline looks at the social entrepreneurship as a phenomena differently. But how do we at Africa, Asia, Afro-Asian countries, to be very precise, look at it? So we see this as a major way forward, major possibility of poverty alleviation, job creation, because we believe that the market-led economic, nothing wrong with market-led economic narrative, but it creates a lot of gap between the rich and the poor, haves and have-nots. So we felt that there is a possibility of bringing social entrepreneurship narrative to solve market side problem or the demand side and the supply side problem. So this is how the discipline started. Probably it started in somewhere in 1999 or close to that. And of course, there is a lot of literature which says that social entrepreneurship can solve multiple problems: education, health, drinking water, housing. We have heard good case studies just in this session, infrastructure. So basically, we look at social entrepreneur as a problem solver, either on the supply side or on the demand side. So interestingly, when you look at the profile of social entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurship as a discipline in practice, the practice is way ahead of academics. I think academics have taken note of practice very recently. When I say recently, last 20, 30 years, maybe, right? So the practice has already evolved. So I think there is a lot to learn from the practitioners, because they already have evolved a lot. They have already developed framework. They have already developed solutions. So I think it's important that we can use this framework to bridge the gap between market-led developmental issues. And also, we can position ourselves to create a cadre of professionals whom we call as social entrepreneurs, as a social reformer who work with a social mission, with a business zeal to bring innovative solution and address some deep societal problem. So this can be a package of narrative which we can build up. And that's how we see in fact, this is the first piece of paper which I wrote along with my PhD scholar, Nia Choi. And we argued that we don't need definition because of this kind of complexity. It's a complex cluster concept, and we don't need definition. So I think first we try to address the question of difficulty in naming or defining social entrepreneurship. We said that it's a cluster concept, and the cluster consists of social value creation. That's very fundamental. And there could be pieces: social innovation, social enterprise organization, market orientation, social entrepreneur. And I have evaluated quite a few PhD theses from other universities across the globe where people have added more factors to it. So I think this narrative is building up where we are saying we don't need definition. We can define social entrepreneurship based on the contextual requirement. So I think what we agree in social entrepreneurship as a discipline, that it somewhere it talks about intersection of societal and business impact, or maybe you can tell society, social, environmental, and economic impact. And this emergence of innovative model, which can be scaled up, which can take a policy frames shape, can be the area which probably social entrepreneurs do, just to simplify the perspective. What we believe is there is actually no debate. There is no conflict between business and social entrepreneurs. Both are solving problem. Social entrepreneurs are solving social problem, environmental problem. They work on social mission. Business entrepreneurs solve market-led problem. So actually, when we see that the earlier debate in the scholarly research that what is that business entrepreneurs don't do, social entrepreneurs do, I think that's not something very valid these days. Business entrepreneurs have their own role to play in the society as social entrepreneurs are. And based on my experience as a mentor and guide, I have mentored more than 300 or 400 social startups. Actually, there's no conflict, and not that every problem in the world can be solved by social entrepreneurs. So we need to be candid enough, we need to be humble enough to understand there are some problems which social entrepreneurs cannot solve. I'm not getting into detail of this, but nevertheless, this is something which I would like to submit here. So interestingly, when you look at the narrative of social entrepreneurship, based on this debate, we see there's a gray, I call it as a gray area, because there are business enterprises who are also trying to see value in this entrepreneurial space or enterprise space to create social value. Vice versa, social enterprises are also trying to become economically sustainable or financially sustainable. So I think one is moving towards the left and other is moving to the right. So I call it as a gray area. So this could be a very interesting area to research. And there could be a lot of research questions which can be raised on this question. So basically, just put an example. There are some patterns which need to be researched on. I'm not finding any answer to it, but nevertheless, we need to discuss. So there was a small study done in 2015 under the British Council, where we formed a steering committee and we worked there. And we just constituted a small study that let us get a feel of what's happening in social enterprise in India. So this is the kind of thing. There was a mix of for-profit company and non-profit company, though this debate is endless, but nevertheless, there are few who are not for-profit, few who are for-profit. Most of them are actually for-profit companies. Most of them are working in skill, education, agriculture, financial services, energy, etc. If I put them in the profile of map of India, I see most of them are located in southern and western part of the country. And interestingly, southern and western part of the country is more advanced economically. They have good ecosystem of business enterprises. So actually the question which comes, we need more social entrepreneurs in northeast part of India, which is underdeveloped, but we have more in the developed region of the country. So is it that's the second food for thought for the scholarly research? Is it that social entrepreneurship have a natural tendency to cluster around where the entrepreneurial ecosystem otherwise is matured? I think this could be the second sort of research question which all of us can carry forward. So emerging research questions could be plenty, and this is the list. And I can share this slide with you. So what we are saying is how this tool-centric social entrepreneurship, knowledge-centric entrepreneurship, do we have a lot of bias towards talking about only successful social enterprise? How are those who could not succeed? I'll just take a few seconds more. So how is the bias can be addressed? Can we learn from the enterprises which could not continue, which could not grow, which could not, so what are the difficulties? What are the new things which we can learn from them? And there is a need for macro study. Actually, we are still on the case study based research, still in the qualitative research stage, because there is no definitional sort of agreement. That's why most of the studies are qualitative and small sample study. I think we'll have to find way out. I don't have any answer at this point of time, but nevertheless, can we do a macro level study? Can we do a cross country study? So I think the question remains before us. It's a multidisciplinary field. So I think the discourse will continue to be incoherent. I think we'll not find a standardized template. We'll not have a standardized answer. We need to understand the context of the organization. Context could be country, it could be region. how the individual look at the problem, how individual decides to work on the problem, and also how we can sort of look at the new theories, new propositions, and new frameworks to see whether the old frameworks or old theories are good enough, or we need the good ones. I think these are a few questions I'm just submitting. There could be more, but nevertheless, a lot has to be done, contextually relevant. A lot can be done by scholars like us who can collaborate, and these kind of forums are extremely valuable for coming together to share our thoughts. Thank you very much. I close here.
Thank you, Professor Satyajit Majumdar. And I think you have presented nicely from the social entrepreneurship from the Indian context, and also raised very important questions, especially the future researchers, academicians really can think of it, and really good research work can carry out so that we can see how one can come up with various innovations. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again. I thank all the panel members for sharing your views. And now we are going to start with the panel discussion. Now may I invite my colleague to start with the panel session. If participants have any questions, please let us know. You can start with the session. Dear participants, if you have any questions. Yeah. Professor Yanto, we have one question. Can you explain further about social entrepreneurship is a source of problem? There is a question to Professor Yanto Chandra. Can you explain further about social entrepreneurship is a source of problem?
Sorry, I was muted. I think a good answer to that is the article that I just shared with you guys. It's published in Journal of Management Studies by my friend Dominic Chalmers, The Solutionism Problem in Social Entrepreneurship. Because we think that social enterprise offer a new solution, there's a bit of exaggeration or hype, if you like, to think that this model can really solve a lot of this world's problems. Maybe there's a lot of this model in social enterprise is really interesting and very unique. You know, like you can trade waste for healthcare. So if the poor people collect some waste, plastic waste, they can get a health insurance. So the model is very, very interesting. So I mean, what this paper and what I'm trying to say here is it's important to look at the solutions and the impact that social enterprises are providing for the world with a grain of salt. Let us not to kind of exaggerate what it can do. Of course, a lot of it can do a lot of new things. This is where I can see, if you look at from a policy perspective, social enterprises and social innovation that are creating a lot of new innovative ideas that can solve a lot of these grand challenges could be seen as a partner of the government. So instead of the government trying to be very innovative, which is oftentimes very difficult and politically dangerous for them to do so, they could look at what the social enterprises, social innovations are doing. And if these are actually doing really well or can help solve the problem, they will work together with these guys or even give them the funding to work together. And as in the cases that I've shown you just now in Hong Kong and Indonesia, the government really embraced this model created by the social enterprise to tackle a lot of public problems in terms of feeling peace or security. That's the work of people in the terrorism and religious, in extremism, or in housing, or in public transport. And there's a lot of these areas in India in terms of water, for example, a lot of ATM water. All of these are providing public goods through the idea of social entrepreneurs. But again, we want to take this with a grain of salt to see that not all of them is actually can create such a huge amount of public impact, but some of them are actually doing really nice. But we as a person who is not doing this, looking at social enterprise, tend to kind of a bit of exaggerating of what this social enterprise can do. So a little bit solutionism problem in the article that I share with you. And I also mentioned we have multi-year of ethnography study in the Philippines, looking at how social enterprises from the capital city of Manila going into the rural areas of the Philippines that are much poorer, much more backward, and people are not that educated, and they're trying to use a market mechanism And guess what? It's actually creating a lot of issues for these people. And neighbors who normally share things with each other, share what you have, share what you eat, a lot of things, they become suspicious toward each other because one get this funding from the social enterprise, the other don't. One could get these things for free from a social enterprise, the other say, I have to pay back this as a loan. So it's creating a lot of this social fabric, the fracture in the social fabric. So yeah, just a little bit of putting a bit of grain of salt in terms of, be mindful about social entrepreneurship, because it can get people to overestimate or build over expectations of what it can do. That's what I mean. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Next, we have a question to Professor Subarna. May I know the teachers that you're training about social entrepreneurs of which level of education? Secondary, higher school, or higher secondary? Higher education.
Yes, thank you. I think Prof. Satyajit has also given the answer for that. I teach teachers. They are going to become teachers, so it's the higher education context from.
Okay, Professor. Any questions for the dear participants? Do you have any questions? In the meanwhile, I have a couple of questions, one or two questions again. It is open to everyone. How do cultural, social, economic, regulatory factors in Asia Pacific region, especially they influence the growth and success of social enterprises? When it comes to our social, cultural, or any regulatory factors, how they are influencing the growth and success of social entrepreneur ecosystem? Do you have any favorable ecosystem, or in terms of regulatory factors, in terms of cultural factors? Any one of you can, each one of you can able to respond to that. As you are coming from different places, how your country supporting us in terms of ecosystem?
Okay, Doctor, I'll give my answer very quickly and in a very short way. In Malaysia, we are seeing a lot of support for social entrepreneurs now. I believe there's also a person on the call here with us, Delphine. Delphine is also from the Malaysia chapter. And I think she can also attest to the fact that we've been getting lots of support. We've got lots of good policies now coming around, and there's also been a budget allocation at the recent financial budgeting for the country. So there's a lot of support for us here. But of course, as I said, I'm not a social entrepreneur. I'm a social intrapreneur. So a lot of the work that I do is very much relevant to the organizational aims and values. So I think I'm going to let the experts, Dr. Satyajit and also Dr. Yanto, give their views on this because they've done much more research in the area.
Okay, can I go next?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I'll talk more from India and of course South Asia, because I have some connection in South Asian region also. So I think in social entrepreneurship ecosystem is quite informal. It's very social. Okay, people come together for common reasons. They share resources. Education institutes are offering programs, but nevertheless, the whole impact investment, etc. These areas are yet to evolve. For example, in India, we have social stock exchange for social enterprises, kind of entities to access funds. Why I'm using the fund? It's not only investment; it could be grant also. But nevertheless, it is yet to pick up traction. I'm not saying it's a bad proposition; it's already there. The exclusive stock exchange is there, but it's yet to pick up traction. So if I put it in a simple word, as a profession, the culture is very supportive. The ecosystem is there, very informally networked as well. But nevertheless, as a formal structure and system, I think it is yet to evolve. But I think on the hindsight, if you ask me why should it be informal, I think there's nothing wrong. Since we are talking about a country of 1.4 billion people, many people live in difficult area, marginalized communities, and so on and so forth. So I think there could be cases when probably the much of formalized system may not work. But nevertheless, I fully agree that government has a role to play. Academic institutions have a role to play. Investors and donor community has a role to play. But nevertheless, I think formality in India is little sort of way ahead. We'll not see in near future.
Okay. Thank you, Professor. And due to lack of time, we are going ahead for the discussion. And once again, on behalf of Catalyst 2030, I would like to thank Professor Yanto, Professor Satyajit Majumdar, and Professor Subarna. Now we are moving towards the next launching of Academic Hub. Please next. Yeah. The main objective of today launching this particular event is that in order to create a platform where academicians, participants, research scholars, and ecosystem enablers, everyone should come in a particular platform. And we need to develop a platform where they can create knowledge, they can disseminate. Creating knowledge and disseminate can only happen through teaching, research, practice. So with the involvement of enablers, with the help of government, one can able to create a system where the interested people, the people those are contributing it, they can come and discuss what is the problem they're facing on it. So the main, in order to achieve this particular vision, we want to create a platform where people can conduct various programs. Because teaching, generally people used to say that you cannot be a good teacher teaching social entrepreneurship without having experience with entrepreneurship. So there should be a platform where they can conduct collaboration programs, capacity building programs, seminars, sharing the teaching experiences. Each person conducts a social entrepreneurship courses, different platforms. So what kind of case studies they are using on? Live cases. It's not a regular course one can teach. So there should be some cases. So we have to motivate the students. We have to inspire the students with a couple of change maker stories. So in order to create, share the knowledge, we need the support of each academician, each research practitioner, is a social entrepreneur. And similarly, we also wanted to collaborate various organizations in order to coming with developing holistic and sustainable CSR programs for effective development point of view. Please next. So if we can able to create this kind of platform with the help of main pillars, like next, go ahead, previous session, previous slide.
Let's move on, because we're happy to celebrate the the launch of APAC Academic Hub. We really want to make this moment memorable. So please, if you feel comfortable, share your face on the screen so we can have like a picture for everybody to join us, joining us in this session. Please show your face on the screen, and we can have like a whole picture for everybody in it. Thank you so much. That's very lovely. Thank you. Okay.
Here, I would like to thank Professor Dibby, the member of Catalyst 2030. She's the one background of this entire event and supporting each one of us and bringing us in a single platform. I want each one of your support as a part of launching this academic hub, and not only launching, even when you're going to move forward, we all require you with all your support, share your knowledge, exchange of your knowledges, contributions. We would like to see how different people can work together in this area of work. Thanks to each one of us.
So now we will be launching